Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue au salon virtuel de QueerTech. Good afternoon, cuties, and welcome to Qareers Virtual Job Fair and Conference Fall 2021. I'm Naoufel, co-founder and CEO at QueerTech. Comme vous le savez, QueerTech est basé à Teotihuacan, Montreal, and I would like to begin by acknowledging that QueerTech is located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Kanya-Kainahi Nation is recognized as the custodian of the lands and the waters on which we gather today. So hier, je parcourais un peu Brella et j'ai été très excité de voir tant de visages familiers nous rejoindre à nouveau. Bienvenue encore à QueerTech. Pour ceux qui nous rejoignent pour la première fois, bienvenue aussi à QueerTech. So I was scrolling yesterday on Umbrella just to see who's registered so far, and I got really excited to see so many familiar faces joining us again. Welcome back. And for those who are new to QueerTech, and this is your first time at one of our events, welcome to QueerTech. Depuis sa création, QueerTech n'a qu'une seule mission, queer the tech ecosystem, comme on dit en anglais. Notre inspiration est de voir une communauté queer saine, financièrement stable et prospère à travers le Canada. So since its inception, QueerTech has had one mission, queer the tech ecosystem. Our inspiration is to see a healthy, financial, sustainable, and thriving queer community across Canada. I firmly believe, and we believe, that queering and helping queer people get into tech industry, advance their career in tech, and launch tech businesses will help us achieve our mission. Notre communauté s'est tellement développée au fil des ans que nous comptons aujourd'hui plus de 6100 membres dans toutes les provinces du pays. Nous avons plus de 85 entreprises partenaires qui souhaitent et qui soutiennent et financent constamment QueerTech. Nous avons plus de 75 partenaires communautaires qui amplifient la voix de QueerTech dans leur communauté à travers le pays. Au fur et à mesure que nous établissons des relations avec différentes entreprises en tech, différents partenaires communautaires et différentes agences gouvernementales, une question nous vient à l'esprit. Est-ce que cette relation sert-elle à élever notre communauté QueerTech à travers le Canada? Our community has grown so much over the years. Today, we are over 6,100 members covering every province in this country. We have over 85 corporate partners that consistently support and fund QueerTech. We have over 75 community partners that are amplifying QueerTech voices to their communities. As we build relationships with different tech companies and different community partners and different government agencies, one question we have in mind: does this relationship serve to elevate our QueerTech community across Canada? So in addition to growing our membership base, corporate and community base across the country, we also launched a research study collaborating with Dr. Robert Paul Juster from Université de Montréal. And we are conducting the first research to understand LGBTQ plus experiences in tech in Canada. And in Q1 of 2022, we will be launching our first phase of the study. Right now, we have a survey that's open, and we need your help to fill up these surveys and share your experiences with us. This is going to be a very important step in really releasing a diversity report with a queer lens, where we provide and share experiences of queer people in tech, but also provide recommendation to tech partners and tech companies across the country to create a safe environment for LGBTQ people. So you see the link of the survey on the screen here. We're also going to post it on Umbrella and our social media in the next couple of days. Nous avons également lancé au début de l'année une série intitulée QT Connect Café, dans laquelle nous partageons des histoires sur des leaders queer dans le secteur des technologies afin de vous inspirer, vous, notre communauté. Early this year, we launched a series called QT Connect Cafe, where we tell stories about queer tech leaders to showcase these role models and inspire you, our community. The world needs to hear more and more queer in tech stories, and we're here to serve it to them. We also launched our job board early this year to continue to connect our community to our partners. You can create an account, interact with recruiters, and also recommend your friends and colleagues for jobs. So you can go today to queertech.org/jobs. There is over 3,000 jobs available for our queer people. Au cours des 2 prochains jours, nous aurons des conférenciers extraordinaires qui nous parleront de différents thèmes, incluant l'avenir du travail et la situation actuelle où on est. Nous avons 2 panels présentés par Unity et Accenture. Nous avons 9 ateliers pour aider des étudiants à obtenir des stages chez nos partenaires, mais aussi nous avons préparé des conversations plus approfondies pour ceux qui veulent discuter plus de leur technologie. En ce moment-là, nous avons 250 personnes qui sont déjà inscrites sur Brella, 27 entreprises partenaires et 23 partenaires communautaires sont là pour faire cet événement un grand succès. Nous avons également plus de 300 entretiens et opportunités de réseautage déjà confirmés et on voit de plus en plus ce nombre augmenter chaque minute. So over the next 2 days, we have an amazing keynote speaker that will share with us the future of work and where we stand today. We have 2 panels presented by Unity, our partners, Unity and Accenture. And we also have 9 workshops that vary from helping students to get an internship at our partner companies. We also prepared more advanced conversation for those who are looking to nerd out a bit. So we have 250 people are already registered and live on Brella. We have 27 corporate partners and 23 community partners are here to make this event a success. We also have over 350 interviews and networking opportunities already scheduled, and I see them growing every minute as I talk to you. So thank you to everyone in our community that reached out to help. Thank you to our volunteers for the fantastic work they do. Special thank you to my co-founder, Andy, who worked so many hours into the night and weekends to make this event happen. Believe me, so many weekends I went into this. So thank you again. For those who love what we do, and you can donate to QueerTech today at queertech.org/support. And thank you so much for everyone who donate to QueerTech every month or every event. We really appreciate it. Your donation help us continue supporting and growing our community. Je tiens à remercier la RBC et l'équipe de RBC pour leur soutien extraordinaire et leur confiance en QueerTech, en particulier Walid, Palwasha et David Burton qui nous ont aidés à faire de ce partenariat un grand succès. So I want to thank RBC and the RBC team for being so amazing at supporting and believing in QueerTech's mission, especially Walid, Palwasha, and David Burton for helping us make this partnership a big success. I want to thank also Accenture and Unity for supporting us to make this event happen. As some of you know, Unity has been with us for years. We've been partnered with QueerTech for 3 years now and continue to support in QueerTech and also recruit more and more queer people to join the realms. Accenture joined us early this year, and we already see the impact they have on QueerTech. Their contribution to the organization continue to grow, and we're very excited to see more and more queer people working at Accenture. Thank you also to our Pride partners, Kabam, Wrangle.io, Shopify, and Solace. And thank you to all our partners attending this event. Without you, this event will be possible. So you see, we have so many ally partners and community partners who are all very excited to connect with you and hire from our community. I also want to thank our community partners from coast to coast for amplifying QueerTech message to their members and their communities. It's been amazing working with them and sharing these events with all these communities. Because of you, our amazing community members joining us from everywhere in Canada, in addition to all these corporate partners and community partners, I am certain that we will create the tech ecosystem together. Avant de nous lancer dans la première session de cet événement, nous aimerions partager une vidéo de notre partenaire présentateur RBC. So before we jump into our first session of this event, we would like to share a video from our presenting partner, RBC.
You're a technologist. You love what you do. You value a workplace that celebrates diversity. You're looking to join a company that speaks up for inclusion, serves their communities, and drives meaningful social impact. And one that is also a cutting-edge innovator in the technology space. And you can't imagine finding all of this at one company. But you can. Welcome to Tech at RBC, a place where diversity and inclusion is more than just a value. It's who we are. Working for Tech at RBC means being embraced for who you are and the expertise you bring. We provide career-accelerating opportunities for women in tech, including access to programs, events, and resources. We value the imaginative ideas, skills, and global perspectives that Canadian newcomers bring to the table. We also offer support programs and workshops to further enable our newcomers. To make sure our leaders represent the diverse communities we serve, we work to move underrepresented BIPOC talent into senior management and executive roles. Fit right into the future of tech at RBC, where if something doesn't exist, we're already working on it.
So I'm very, very excited to present our first speaker at this event, Lauren. Lauren have joined RBC in 2017, is currently Vice President, Future of Work and Culture in HR. Prior to joining RBC, Lauren was founder of Talent Egg. It's a leading job board for students and recent graduates, which was acquired in 2015. Under her leadership, Talent Egg was used by millions of students and recent graduates to find jobs and navigate the transition from university to working life. Lauren learned her BA from Queen's University and her master's degree from the London Schools of Economics. Lauren, welcome to Qareers Virtual Job Fair and Conference.
Glad to be here. That was a cool intro.
It's like being on the red carpet. And
exactly. Yeah.
How is your week going, Lauren?
My week so far is going well. I spent a few days in an office this week, which is new for me, but also a really great experience considering our team has been very heavily involved in designing the future of work for RBC. So it was cool to start living my own hybrid future this week.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and nice to be working from home today.
Yeah, me too. I'm very eager to also start going to an office and connecting with people. Lauren, before we dive in, I always like to ask our speakers, what are your pronouns?
She and her.
Excellent. Thank you. Mine are he and him. So before we kind of dive into question, just, we know that there is so much conversation on future of work, upskilling, reskilling, the workforce. And, before COVID-19, government and companies treated this issue with a minimal urgency. But once the pandemic hit, COVID-19 really increased economic and social inequalities, have forced some people to really that are at the front of the crisis to force them work out there and kind of disseminated a lot of industries temporarily, right? And so as I'm curious, how did RBC deal with this shift in the future of work?
Yeah, so I think you brought up an important point at the beginning, which is that people were thinking about this before, just not quite with the urgency that we have now, and not quite with the toolbox that we have now. So, before the pandemic, I'll use myself as an example. I didn't believe in working from home or flexible work hours or anything like that. I was a very much like work is at the office and we should all be there at the same time so that we can best collaborate with each other. And the pandemic proved me and thousands, millions of other people wrong. And we learned that there is a way of working that works better for a lot of people out there, and that all of these things that we previously thought were impossible are possible. So now you're looking at an opportunity to change the outcomes of people's careers, the outcomes of businesses, and also of people's lives with just this broader set of tools than you had before. Things like reskilling and upskilling, like you said, were hot before. Things like part-time or gig work were hot before, but we hadn't considered things like flexibility in scheduling, in rethinking the entire structure of what a job is. moving away from job mandates and towards just flowing people more freely to work. These were things that, like, intellectually made sense, but that we didn't think were possible. And then, pandemic happens. All of a sudden, I'll speak for an organization like RBC and lots of, organizations that have large workforces and who were essential services during the pandemic. We saw our people freely flow with clarity to what was the most important work. Regardless of what their official job title was or what their reporting line was, people just knew what was most important, and they got to work on that thing in order to best serve our clients and our communities and each other. And again, so all of these things that we learned that are possible now that weren't possible before start to open up just, this massive toolbox of positive of things that can drive positive change. I'll touch on another one just before actually answering your question, which is that we also saw our leadership and our teams become more human. We saw things. We saw into people's houses, into their lives. We met their kids and their dogs, and we saw the mess and the chaos, or the opposite, that they live in. And not only can we not unsee this, but we don't want to unsee it, right? We want to see more of people's whole selves. I think, our community has been talking about that for a long time. And that, about inclusion and bringing our whole selves to work. But I think everybody is now seeing just the value of what happens. You can feel comfortable to be yourself in your work environment, and how that leads to both a healthier environment and a more productive one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we've seen this, right? Some industries have been a little bit more forward with the work of from home concept and kind of had that infrastructure. A lot of industries haven't. And so it's really to see the transitions happening. And I imagine, a company like RBC with hundreds of thousands of employees everywhere, what are the current efforts that you've started to implement to really create that future of work, and also to adjust to this new concept where people want to work from home and you have to adjust to it?
I'll start with the first. A core belief of ours at RBC is that the future of work is much more than where you work. So hybrid or working from home, those are concepts that are part of the future of work, absolutely, but they're not the whole thing. We believe in a future of work that is adaptable, where we are more easily flowing to the highest priority work. I mentioned that, but also where we're offering our employees more flexibility to work in the ways that work best for them, their clients, and their communities. We also believe that the future of work is not one where you come in fully educated and then you apply your education to a specific job and sort of stay there. We believe that the future of work will require us all to continue to build our skills, to be always learning, and so we can not only get the best talent and then make them even better, but so that we can attract people who are enticed by this idea of coming in smart and coming out smarter at the other end. It's a really strong, an important part of our employee value proposition, that you can come in fully baked on one topic and learn dozens of new skills throughout your career and try different things, because we know how quickly the skills, and especially in the tech space, the skills that are required to successfully do your work, to compete, to innovate, are changing at a faster rate all the time. And then the third thing that we believe about the future of work is what I said before, around being more human. I think that it is connected to, but not the same as, diversity and inclusion. It is about seeing people for their whole selves, and not just who they are, not just a package of skills that you can apply to pieces of work, but understanding the whole context of a human, and creating an environment in which that human can bring their best selves to the table. And so the work we have underway, my hair is funny. Oh, now it's even funnier. Okay, not things you want to happen on a live broadcast. So the things we have underway is we are working hard to implement our hybrid future We set out some guiding principles across our organization. We are 86,000 people globally in many different countries, and with a lot in Canada, but definitely a lot around the world too. So it was impossible to come up with sort of one guideline for everyone, but we found that enterprise principles created a sort of spirit within which people could and businesses could determine the work arrangements, the way of working work best for their business. And so, my team and HR in general, for example, we're hybrid. We call it like hybrid mixed. So we are 2 to 3 days on premises, 2 to 3 days at home. We have other teams where it's more structured. The teams have agreed to come in on certain days of the week. We have others that are fully remote, and others, for example, are employees in branch environments that are fully on premises, because that's where our clients work, and that's the nature of those roles. And you know what? There are people who prefer that too, employees who prefer that too. And so you add another dimension into your internal mobility as an employer, that people can start to choose the way of working that will bring out the best in them. And I think we'll start to see more self-selection into work arrangements and roles that help people reach more of their potential. We also have other work underway across some of the other pillars. I'll say that on the human one, the big push we did this year, aside from our formal work on diversity and inclusion, was a big push on mental health. And, when I say that we saw into people's homes and their lives, and their dogs and their kids, we also saw people dealing with some of the most challenging situations they'd ever encountered. There was a lot of life baked into work over the last year and a half, and we recognized that the impact of that was different for everyone, but that there were more people that were suffering more deeply from mental health issues than before, anything ranging from burnout to severe depression. And so we really stepped up our focus on that. We still are doing a lot of internal storytelling. I shared my own story internally about postpartum depression. We had other leaders sharing stories about suicide and other topics. We really want to humanize again this and help people destigmatize it and make it safe to talk about at work. We extended our Canadian mental health benefit from a $3,000 to a $5,000 benefit. And we did a whole bunch of we ran a massive event, et cetera, to try to, again, destigmatize, equip people with the information they need to have good conversations around it, to understand mental health, and to actually support people when they were acutely feeling the impacts of a mental health crisis.
Yeah, no, it's been really amazing to see mental health really coming at the forefront of all this, right? And something that, I remember working even at organizations like Microsoft back in the days, and no leader would talk being stressed or talk about their issues, right? It was just something that
seen as a
you
weakness,
wouldn't
right?
share in public, especially C-suites, it was just like you shielded. And today, everyone talking about this, it really creates that human side of work. And I'm interested, as you planned all this, I'm sure you've had so many challenges across the board, and maybe as a bank also more than other industries where, you have to think of other aspects. Can you share some of the challenges that you faced on the way as you worked and how you addressed them?
Yeah. So, so here's what I would say. We are a large financial institution that has had 150 years of success working in the ways we've always worked. And so it is totally reasonable for people to be nervous about changing that. Again, there's something, again, that has been we've been knocking it out of the park year after year with working in the way that we worked prior to the pandemic. And so, any pushback that we've gotten along the way has been very reasonable and very logical. It comes from a place of, we have a responsibility to our employees, to our shareholders, to our clients, to our communities. And so, it was the challenge and the way that we approached it was to to both de-risk it, but also to present an opportunity to differentiate in the market. I think that as we continue to battle through this really competitive talent environment, we have an opportunity to differentiate our opportunity from competitors, like anything from another financial institution to a tech company, by being more flexible and taking a chance on that. And we also know that nothing is irreversible. That we can try this. A lot of our messaging internally has been that we don't know what we don't know. I think that anyone right now standing up and saying the future of work is, and having a very clear, like having conviction that cannot be shaken, is lying to you. There's no way to know. In fact, I challenge you to find anything written prior to 2020 about the future of work, and it be accurate. Like, it's not possible. Nobody could have seen the pandemic coming, and definitely no one could have seen its impact on how we work and live. So, just using that as a proxy, like anybody who's telling you they know exactly how this is all going to shake out as the world continues to open up is just flat out wrong. I trust them less. And so we've always said, and again, very reasonably, we've been very open with our employees, very transparent, to say, we don't know what we don't know. We think based on everything we've learned, that this is going to be better for you, better for our clients, better for our communities, better for our shareholders. And we think it's worth giving it a really good try, not just let's see how it is, and we kind of expect it to fail, and then we'll go back to how it was. Like, a really good try. We're putting in investment. We have enough conviction that we think it's worth putting our whole selves into it. But we also know that we don't know what we don't know. We may change our minds, and we may have to adjust along the way, but we're all united in the same goal. We see an opportunity to make how we work better for everyone, and we want to pursue that. And if this isn't the path, we'll find some other, because we're all on this path to make work better.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's for the longest time we've seen corporations have put shareholders as number one, and now it's shifting to employees as your number one asset.
It's the same, right? One is a function of the other. I mean, your employees are, especially in an organization, well, in all organizations, your employees are, I think, your best kept secret. You're in terms of driving business value. So I think yes, organizations acknowledge that, but I think if you think about it like from a more technical perspective, the way that the mental model in my head is that the average employee at any organization is reaching not their full potential. Maybe because the manager they're working with, they don't have good chemistry, or the work they're working on doesn't get them in their flow, or they're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. They don't have enough training, whatever it is. They're not at their full potential. And if you were to quantify that, look, I think probably, again, ballpark, you're at 60. Any employee is at about 65% on average of their reaching about 65% of their potential. If by improving the experience, investing in our people, training, better allowing people to work in ways that bring out the best in them, you can get that 65% potential to getting to 70, even just like a 5% lift. Think about the business outcomes you can drive for your clients and for your shareholders. So, I think these things are functions of each other, and you can't talk about one without talking about the other.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to kind of go a little bit in the future, because I think, as you're thinking of what the future of work today, there is also like, where do you think it's going to be in the next 5 years as we're trying to figure it out? There's a lot of question. And I'm talking like there's two aspects that I think about. One is in terms of the skills that the companies need so they can really kind of function and operate. And also there is this, there is the economic mobility of employees, and people want to move around and live outside of cities. And so where do you think that 5 years is going to be?
So I think TBD on the moving outside of cities thing. I think that all of us at some point during the pandemic were like, why are we paying a premium to live in the city and trapped in our small houses when we could be in the country living off the land and enjoying our again, all the benefits of country living without any sort of commute. Definitely that crossed our minds. We seriously considered many times, many different places outside of Toronto. We felt like suckers for paying Toronto prices to just be in our houses. So I don't know if that's a persisting trend, because I think that that if we're right about hybrid, then we're not going to be right about this moving to other locations, the economic mobility, the social mobility, all of that of people. I think that we are that if people are enjoy and if they find it brings out the best in them to go downtown or to wherever the office is, one or a couple of days a week, it starts to become less valuable to be outside the city. I also think that as amenities in cities open up, there will be, we like the city not just because it's closer. We like it because there are cool things to do in a city. There is something to density. There is a buzz. But there are multiple cities you can go to. So I'm not saying that it doesn't mean that people are. I think that the balance of power has shifted. Employees understand that they have choice right now, particularly in technology. And they are, and there is a lot more freedom and flexibility to choose the work, the employer, the manager, and the location that makes most sense to you. So what I think are trends, things that we're doing at RBC, we're starting to hire more from other hubs across Canada. We think that we can develop critical mass in more than just Toronto. We think that Montreal and Calgary and Halifax are great places to build critical mass. And I say that because, again, we believe that it's important for people to come together for those moments that matter. Like, we really do believe that hybrid is the way to go, and that fully remote would be more of an exception. And we think ultimately, this is the bet we're taking, that ultimately that will lead to a better employee experience, happier employees, more engaged employees, and then the companies who have openly stated that they are remote first, or that or just remote completely, that in the long term they will be the ones who are hemorrhaging talent, and we and others who have committed to hybrid could benefit. Those of you listening, I'd love your opinion on that.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. I think, today the market's opened up a lot more, right? I see more and more tech companies that I talked to, and a lot of the partners presented this job fair are all hiring employees remote, but they're all starting to be conscious. Should we have offices in different cities where people can still come together and collaborate? The idea of just a headquarter in one location and everyone is there is maybe going to dissipate, and you can start.
But the benefit of being able to come together with your colleagues from time to time, even if it's just for a social event, for some sort of charity event, those things are what create belonging. And belonging is, at least we found internally, and we're starting to see research externally, is the number one driver of employee engagement. So, it is I think it's short-sighted for organizations to offer a fully remote, never come to the office arrangement, except for by exception. There are obviously exceptions. But again, our bet is that, by creating more locations that RBC can join us, that top tech talent can join us, and then having those opportunities, creating those moments that matter for people to come together from different teams, from the same team, whatever, to get to know each other, to immerse themselves in the culture, to create connection to each other and to RBC is just going to be critical to our long-term ability to attract and retain talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I want to talk also about another aspect that's important, which is, for the last 20 years or maybe longer, we've been talking about reskilling and upskilling workforce. We knew, AI is coming, and tech and automation and all that stuff is happening. And I'm curious, in your opinion, like, what role should a corporation play in supporting their employees to learn and improve their skills? Because, it's like the way I see it is that for the longest time, skills training have always been an after work thing that people do. They want to learn, they do master degrees, they go learn new things. And now we're seeing some companies are making it during work thing also, because we recognize the value that it brings. So, so in your opinion, is learning should be something that an organization structure and be responsible for, or do you think individuals should have their own thing?
So I'll start with one thing. I think, let's start with human nature, human behavior. If you are not intrinsically motivated to learn and to constantly improve your skills, it's really hard to incentivize you to make time, whether it's during your workday or after work, to do it. So that's number one. You have to be intrinsically motivated to learn. then I think that it is up to an organization to create the extrinsic motivations or incentives or whatever to appeal to those. To number one, create opportunities to learn absolutely during the day, to provide materials or access to content, to relevant content, and to support employees as they seek to learn more. And we absolutely do all of those things at RBC. But again, what we found is, and we've played around with lots of different ways to incentivize the behavior. If you are not intrinsically motivated, if you do not believe or understand or want by the idea of always learning and always getting better, you're not going to. At least formally. You may be reading stuff on LinkedIn or wherever you read things. You may be attending conferences because your buddies are there or whatever, but formal learning takes intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think also there is, the reason I'm thinking, is this something that happened during work hours or outside, is because we've also seen a lot of the people that lived behind marginalized group that, maybe have responsibilities, mothers who have kids, parents who have to take care of their elderly parents or brothers, don't have time to do that. And so if they are not able to do it during the work time, then they kind of miss out and get behind.
No, totally. It's a great point. And we have to level the playing field for access to that kind of learning and development, which ultimately, we don't want to create a vicious cycle where the people who have the time to work are the privileged people, and then we just lock people out of advancement. It's tricky in practice, but we can definitely be, we can provide equal opportunity, but we can't make sure that it's equitable, right? Ultimately, because sorry, I shouldn't say we can't. It's still a work in progress. So right now we have equal, but it's not necessarily equitable.
Yeah. And I've seen, as I talk to more companies and kind of understand what people are doing, I've seen companies now, creating professional development budget for people to learn, take courses. They do professional development days. So once a month or once every other month, you get a day where you go and you learn something that's aligned with the career and what we're going to do. So there is efforts. Companies are starting to say, great, we're going to give this one day because it's an investment in this employee and in the future of the company. So I think as we see all this, the future of work change, and I think this aspect of supporting employees to grow is going to be more and more important.
Yeah, and it has to be more than just, saying, we think it's important. To your point, it's about carving out time during the day and saying this is your time to learn, and or creating actual interventions. You are attending this training session, at this location or at this time. Again, I think that it is a partnership between the employee and the employer to figure out how to actually make the most of those things. Because the other thing about learning things is if you don't want to learn it, you're not going to. You can sit through a course and learn absolutely nothing if you're not engaged. But it is absolutely in the interest of employers to hire people smart, people that are smart, and then make them smarter. We want people at RBC who get better, faster, stronger, smarter the longer that they stay. That's a winning strategy, and I think more and more companies are seeing that and need to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of getting to my last question before we wrap up, but we've seen so many people are resigning, quitting their jobs, looking for better opportunities, reassessing their career paths and where they are at. So what advice do you have? And a lot of them are actually attending this event, and I've been talking to some people who are really kind of doing that self-searching. So what advice do you have for them as they try to choose their next career move or employer?
Yeah, I can share, you read my bio. I came from a startup. I started a startup and co-founded, and now I work in HR at a large bank. And that might be confusing to people. And for me, it was, is there a really hard problem to solve? Do I like the people I'm going to be working with? Are they smart? Are their values aligned with mine? And is the prize big enough if we solve the problem? So for me, those are the things that mattered and continue to matter as I think about roles even within RBC. And I think that that may not be a framework that works for those of you watching, but you choose your framework. What are the things that are important to you? Is it the people you work with? Is it the comp? Is it the values of the company? Is it your direct people manager? And evaluate those against those 2 or 3 and tops 5 things that are just kind of most important to you, and go forward. I think, and I think, like, as you're thinking about things that are important to you right now during the pandemic, also evaluate how you felt before, and know that we are still in this period of strangeness, and things will change again. So, like for me, it's that remote thing. Honestly, like I didn't want to go back to the office on Tuesday, which was my first day back. But I also knew that the day that I left premises, I didn't want to work from home. I loved working on premises. So when I look at that from like just not thinking from my heart, but thinking from my head, I realize it's just the resistance to change. That is, like I have to get up. Do I have makeup? Do I have clothes? I'm pregnant. Do I have clothes that fit? Are there, how are we going to manage? How are my wife and I going to manage school drop-off, pickup, seeing our daughter? How are we going to manage that change for her? It was that was in the way, not the actual experience. And, even 2 days in, I feel a lot better about it. My heart feels better. And I am grateful that I was able to channel my head on that change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there is different ways we need to evaluate. And today people don't look at just the salary that the company, but there is a bigger package of the environment that the company, the benefits, the flexibility that it offers. And I think that's becoming more and more valuable than even, like that salary that was on the top. So it's amazing to see people are re-evaluating and looking for better
the makeup of the things that are important. Like, before the pandemic, I would have, my set of values was different than it is now. I'm lucky to work for an employer and to be able to design programs and design employee value propositions that work for me and for many others. But, like for example, with my daughter, before, I just didn't realize that it was possible to be home for bath time or to have breakfast with her. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, it is possible. I'm not willing to give that up. This set of things that is most important to me is, or that I expect as a basic package from any employer I work with, and that RBC absolutely is offering, let's do that. And I think, comp is important, but it is not, it should never be the only thing on your list.
Yeah, absolutely. Time is up and we have to wrap up. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your perspective with us. And looking forward to connect again soon.
All right. Thanks so much for having me.
Wonderful. So we're going to be moving to our next session that I'm also very excited about. And Unity is presenting a session on community connections, and really going to be a great conversation moderated by Brett and a team of people from Unity to really offer a discussion on some of their exceptional LGBTQ+ employee resource group, community members and leaders. And you're going to have a deep dive in conversation with offering insight into how you can create connection and build support with the LGBTQ community and their ERG group. So I will pass it to the panel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Super excited to be here with all of you and with this amazing panel of my fellow colleagues. As was just mentioned, just to let you know what this session will be about, we're going to kind of do a deep dive into how you can create connections and build support with the LGBTQ community through your work, within your teams, and in your employee resource groups. And I'm joined by an incredible panel of people today that I'm super excited to have this conversation with. So we'll start with just some introductions to get to know us. So my name's Brent. I'll be your moderator for this event. I'm a recruiting coordinator based out of Montreal. I've been with Unity for about 1.5 years now, and I'm super excited to talk with these wonderful people. So Izzy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Izzy Reese. I'm a technical program manager on the ShareGraph and Train team. My pronouns are she, they, and I've been working at Unity now for about a year and a half, 2 years if you count my internship experience, which is pretty crazy to think about. And yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us. Paisley, do you want to introduce yourself?
I was like, oh, I see everyone's got their job titles in their name, so I was going to change it really quick, but that's okay. My name is Paisley. My pronouns are they, she, and I lead the Unity for Humanity program at Unity, and that is in the social impact team.
Cool. Welcome.
Thank
Elizabeth, you're up next.
Hi, yes, I'm Elizabeth Legros. I am a graphic programmer on the Shadergraph team. My pronouns are she, they, and I am also the LGBTQ plus ERG Community Outreach Chair.
Awesome. So this is your panel for today, everybody. Welcome to what should be a great conversation. So let's just get right into it. Paisley, I'm going to start with you. Can you let us know a little bit more about what your work is with Unity for Humanity, and maybe tell people a little bit about what it is for those who don't know?
Sure. So Unity for Humanity is a really cool program at Unity. It's fairly new. It started a couple of years ago. And it's in the social, so the Unity has a social impact department, team. A bunch of people work on social impact, and that has a lot of different things that go on in there, including education and teaching people Unity and all these sorts of things. Within that, Unity for Humanity offers real-time 3D creators grants, opportunities for funding, technical support, mentorship, and community. So a lot of my role is making community, making connections with creators who are making social impact work. And so you might be like, what is social impact work? Well, that would be a game, AR, VR, tool, an app, anything that basically makes a difference in the world. So an easy way of kind of like gauging whether your project is social impact would be to check out the UN Sustainable Development Goals and see if your project aligns with any of those.
That's really awesome. So to build on that, specifically for the LGBTQ community and people building these sort of things and connecting with community, how does that work with the Unity for Humanity?
Sorry, my cable is a little flopsy. If you see me shaking, that's why. Okay, so how does it tie into LGBTQ? Well, so first of all, when we consider projects to win or receive funding or grants, or people who we want to support or uplift as a creator, we are looking at projects holistically. We want to make sure that the team is really inclusive and thinking really expansively about who they're reaching and how they're considering their topic. So naturally, various identities naturally fit into that process of how we look at support, and also just by nature of social impact and activism, there's a lot of queer folks who happen to be making this kind of work. So I think there is sort of a natural connection anyways. But then of course, like actively going out and supporting projects like, there are, this isn't one of our grantees, but like there are incredibly specific projects like VR LGBT museums in that kind of thing, or like House of Dust is a project that the social impact department has supported, and that is looking at queer Latinx folks who are dealing with addiction. And so you can get very specific queer projects that are in our network. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Thank you. I'm going to shift a little bit and hit you up now, Izzy. You said you started as an internship with Unity. Now you're a full-time employee. You've been with us for a while. What's important to you to feel supported in a team environment, and how to support others? Can you share kind of a little bit about your team dynamics and what you kind of look for in a team when it comes to that sort of thing?
Yeah, so it's really convenient actually, because I already have one of my team members here with Elizabeth, since we work together. But yeah, no, the really nice thing was, coming on to Unity, I felt like I had a really great team to work and start off with. of course, my experience isn't necessarily the same as everyone's, but at least for my team, I felt like we had a lot of diversity in terms of inclusion, in terms of different sexual and gender identities, in terms of just like race, which I think helped a lot. I'm sure for many of us being in tech, it's very often that we're in these spaces that are predominantly taken up by, white men, which is, of course, it's always great to like have those colleagues. We love working with them, but it's nice to also see yourself kind of represented in like your leadership, because then you can, if you see yourself represented in your leadership, it's a lot easier to see yourself kind of growing then at the company, right? Of course, there's still like room for improvement with all these things, right? But I've been able to kind of find that within my team, especially through a lot of the kind of team activities we do. And being a technical program manager, a lot of what I do on the day-to-day is really working closely with my team to kind of help set them up for success and kind of in some ways, be kind of a support role for them. So it's kind of a good feedback loop in a way, right? Because I feel like a lot of times I have to be there for my team to kind of provide support, whether it be, supporting them through the work they're doing or supporting them emotionally. And I've been able to very often find that same level of support back.
That's great. That's super good to hear. And how do you feel that has changed? I mean, internships, it's always a little scary. It's probably for some people a first quote unquote real job, or, might be something that you're going to start in your career. How has your view changed from an intern to now? Like you said, you have a team that you support, that come to you. How has that dynamic changed, and how has your view of that changed?
I think it's definitely changed a lot since I've come on, but I would say that's also just because Unity has changed a lot since I've also joined the company. Back when I was originally interning, we were at like 3,000 employees, and now we're at, I believe, 6,000 recently. So it's doubled in size since, I first started my internship. But, besides just the size aspect of it, I think a lot of the work I do, when I was intern, I was still kind of getting my foot in the door. I was still trying to kind of figure out, is this what I want to do long term? Is this kind of how it's going to be like as a full-time employee? And I think a lot of the work that you do get as an internship does kind of reflect into the work that you do full-time. It just, now I feel a lot more confident in what I do, basically. Whereas, your internship, you only get 3 months to really quickly learn everything about Unity, and something you learn very quickly when you join Unity is there's a lot to learn. So trying to squeeze that onto 3 months is definitely a challenge.
Absolutely. Definitely. Well, thank you. Elizabeth, talking about teams, growth, our ERGs, or for those who don't know, sorry, acronyms throw people off. Our employee resource groups have been, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be about 2 years now that we've had them. So they're new. Obviously, as Izzy mentioned, our employee base has grown drastically. There's obviously more and more need for these. There's more and more people that want to be involved in them. So for you, as the community lead for our LGBTQ+ employee resource group, how do you think about community building in that context?
Yeah, so often when I'm trying to think of ways to support the various ERGs at Unity, I think about checking in with the people that are most affected by things going on in the world. A lot of the times we come to this job and we're coming from a context. Either it is a context of I'm having a bad day because I saw X on the news, or I'm having an okay day, but my friend or my partner or my loved one is not doing well because they are affected by this. And really focusing on, especially now, kind of being there for individuals and really just listening and reaching out to people that I know are affected by some of these issues, and just practicing being a shoulder to cry on sometimes. So when building a community, I think it's most important to share this pain, but also to share joy. And so to also, when you're doing this work, really focus on, yes, helping people that are in need, but also celebrating the amazing thing that people are doing, or celebrating just, my friend did a big hike over a mountain and that's awesome, and they're doing all this work, and really just kind of being human.
Yeah.
And building a community, like very much as you would any other community. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of emotional work. But I think the end result is well worth it.
Awesome. I think you brought up a good point that, we often forget about is we are people. Like, yes, this job is important. Yeah, we spend a lot of time at work, but that's not our whole selves. That's not everything that affects us. And yeah, sometimes things going on in our personal life or in the world in general, especially over the last couple of years, can be, really taxing. And how do you show up to work, but still feel supported, still feel like you can be yourself is super important. So I think you brought up a good point about that. Going to kind of open this up to kind of all of us, because we all met. We're all in different places. We all have different jobs. I mean, Izzy and Elizabeth are on the same team, but for Paisley and I, we're on different teams. We're in different cities. And we've all met through the ERG by building community. So I guess I'm going to throw this out there. I'll start with you, Paisley. What does community mean to you, and what are you looking for in an employee resource group and like that sort of community? What do you want to get out of that?
I think for me, community means a group of people who understand what you're experiencing or you've experienced, or get the context of what you're coming to work as, especially with a work community. It's a space where you have a shared interest. And I think more than anything, it's a place where you can be your real self, or at least as real as you can be in a professional setting, I guess. Like, like community can be so many things. And I think Elizabeth touched on a lot of that. Like, being human is so important. And I think especially as we have these remote work environments where, all you see is this frame, and you can sort of have a filter or a light on, and you can kind of shape this box, and that's all you see. It's so nice to have like a space where you can, that there are people who see beyond that frame, and that's really what it boils down to for me.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Izzy, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I think definitely Paisley hit it on the head. I think for so many of us, but we haven't even been in the office since all this has happened. I was lucky in that I was able to have a couple of months in the office while I was interning. And I found those were really great times for me to like find that kind of community, right? To talk with people at UD who I would never have a chance to talk with normally. And so one of the definitely unfortunate things about us, being remote, is that there's less kind of opportunities just to meet and interact with like cool individuals. But I will say through working at the ERG, especially on the recruitment and retention committee, it's been a kind of a good opportunity for me to start to meet some other folks at UD and start to slowly kind of build a little bit more of a community there. I think, again, there's still a lot of growth and work to be done to like really make the ERGs shine and have, people come on and really feel like a lively community. But I think we've made some really good progress to kind of build that culture over time.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Elizabeth, I know you kind of just talked about this a bit, but if you want to add anything about it.
Yeah, the only thing I think I want to add is it is great to, one second, let me.
The joys of working from home, everybody.
That's my alarms to take my meds in case I forgot. I think it is important to have community for people that can understand the different aspects of your life, the different parts of your identity. But I also think it's important to have people in your communities that have different perspectives. And I think it's an opportunity to also reach across some of these identities and to build up voices that maybe aren't always heard. And I think that community allows a great place to invite those voices in and to give these different perspectives than may have been considered and really create an even better environment, a better community.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, just because we're part of the community doesn't mean we know all aspects or that we know all people's experiences. I feel like I'm constantly learning in in our meetings, in our events, or even in our Slack channels, you know, people bring different perspectives that I'm like, wow, I didn't even think about it that way. But as soon as they say that, you're like, yep, that makes a lot of sense. Especially for me, I know specifically, you know, at first glance, I am a white man, which provides me a lot of privilege that a lot of other people don't have. So my experience as a gay white man is very different than a lot of other people's experiences. So I think building those communities and having those open dialogues where people feel safe to talk about stuff is super important. And especially at work, we're at work 40 hours a week. We often spend more time with our coworkers than we do our friends and loved ones. So I think it's important to be able to feel comfortable to bring ourselves to work and to have those conversations, because we're people. Work is one aspect of us, and we can't cut that out of what we do. Thank you all for sharing. We've talked about this a lot, but let's kind of shift a little bit away from work. Of course, work's important. Building a community at work is important. But like we said, work is only one aspect of our lives. So how do you build community, or what do you do outside of work to be part of those communities? Paisley, I'll kick it off to you.
Well, I'm an extrovert. I love people. Like, community is kind of my love language, I guess. So I'm in a lot of different communities across industries and interests and identities, really. So I guess your question is hard for me to answer specifically, because there have been communities I've built that have been virtual. Like, I was a lead of an organization called Women in VR AR for a long time. That was all, you know, on a Facebook group, moderating that sort of stuff. And then I've done, like, you know, real life community, like going out and meeting people and trying to make queer friends, for example, in new cities. Like, that's always can be quite hard for people. My partner and I just moved to Vancouver when I took this position. And so it's been an interesting process for us to try to meet queer folks who live here.
not easy during a pandemic.
No, trying all the apps, you know, whatever. And then, of course, like, there's work professional communities. I mean, Women in VR was one of those, but I'm in the immersive VR AR space and a lot of art and filmmaking spaces. So that's another area where I'm seeking out community and sharing work and giving feedback and sharing things I know. The same thing goes for me. Like, I always find that the best way to make community is just being like, you're just being silly or cutting the ice or like putting yourself out there or taking a risk. Like, usually when I put myself out there and I take a risk, it leads to friendship, I guess, faster than being a little bit more timid, I guess. So that's it.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
No, right. There's lots of different communities we can be a part of and lots of different parts of us that we explore outside of work. Thank you. Izzy, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like Paisley, you know, I'm also an extrovert. So for me, you know, finding community is something that's really important for me. Finding like people I kind of really click and gel with, especially since similarly as well, I also recently moved. Originally, I was living down in the San Francisco Bay Area for most of the pandemic, but now recently moved up to Seattle. So for me, and like where I find community, I find it in a lot of places. You know, I try to kind of I have a good network of friends who I've like built up over the years, and kind of have developed that through either college connections or just through the spider web, you know, where you'll have a friend who knows a friend and it kind of goes from there. And then, you know, in terms of, that's kind of like the more informal connections I have with a lot of like queer folks. And then besides that, you know, I'm also involved in some online communities. I participate a lot in this Discord called Marginalized Genders in Games, you know, which is specifically about helping out folks who typically haven't had as much like visibility or accessibility into the games industry, right? So women, trans folk, you know, non-binary people, just kind of anyone who typically has kind of been left out of that equation. So been involved in that, which has been a really great way to meet and network with other like-minded professionals, and also people who kind of have that same background as you, to kind of, tie it back. It helps a lot with communities, I feel like, when you all kind of come from a similar place, because it's something to easily kind of connect over. And yeah, besides that, I just try to do random hobbies and just put myself out there. So one thing I've been really trying to pick up recently is doing roller skating. And the nice thing about roller skating is there's a very large queer community who's involved in that. So they kind of go hand in hand. And yeah, it's been great, honestly, just doing skate lessons and then just meeting random queer folks like on the rink.
I love that. If I'm ever in Seattle, I definitely want to come rollerblading with you. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, let me know whenever.
Well, Elizabeth, I'll kick it over to you.
So I am not an extrovert. I am most certainly an introvert, and I am a programmer introvert. So I do a lot of just like looking down and being like, yeah, that's nice. So for me, building community is a lot usually more virtual. The things I have the spoons for at a given time. But I have found Discord groups to be incredibly awesome. I found a number of great friends just through playing games together. I think also just keeping an eye out on whatever kind of social media. I am definitely frequent on TikTok and find lots of fun communities through there. And I think generally just kind of keeping your eyes and ears open.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is still something that, as an adult, I struggle with, though. Like it's a hard thing to do, to build up community. And especially, echoing Izzy, I moved up here in early April, and it's a hard time to build community as is, and combine that with the way the world is, the pandemic and everything. It's hard. So also making sure you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to take care of yourself before you can potentially help a community or take care of others. I love it. I love that we're all slightly different. We all find community in different ways. I find community through sport. I'm part of an LGBTQ plus inclusive water polo team. So it's brought me meeting people that honestly I probably would never have met otherwise. I mean, our age ranges from like 20 to like in their 50s. So, and it's, lawyers, doctors, programmers, like people that like I probably wouldn't run in the same circles with. So it's always fun to get out there and meet people that, necessarily wouldn't otherwise meet. And it's just a shared interest. We've gotten a question that I'm gonna maybe have each one of you chime in on your thoughts on this. So when starting as a new employee at a larger company, so one like ours that's growing rapidly, what are some tips on navigating and finding your people within that large company, especially in a remote world? What should candidates ask potential employers? I don't know if any of you want to start or...
So my experience, I'll tell you, it was kind of hard for me. I also come from the more not giant company world, like film and indie VR and AR stuff. So coming into the space, I found it a bit intimidating. And while this speaks to the extrovert element of myself, I would just like message people on Slack who seemed cool and start a conversation and set up a chat with them to get to know them, because ultimately just even on video, having a conversation is the best way to make contacts. And then in terms of like what to ask potential employers, I mean, it depends I would love to get more details about that question actually before I give information, but there's the basics like salary, compensation, benefits. Is there a queer community? what does the diversity inclusion team look like? How will I be supported at work? These are just like the basic questions that I would like to ask before I join a company. I also like to really understand communication styles of my team and my, the folks I'm going to be working with. So how do you deal with challenges? What's your work-life balance like? What do you have your boundaries with work on the weekends and the evenings, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Elizabeth, I saw you had unmuted. So if you want to go next.
Sure. I will not claim to be an expert on this, first of all. Because,
disclaimer, none of us are experts.
Yes. I definitely did have to do that kind of vibe check of like talking to somebody on the interview process. I found somebody who had pretty much this exact same haircut, and between the two of us, we made a full head of hair. And so I decided, okay, you're cool. Let's start with you and see if I can start feeling out through that. Or just finding people on Slack that are outspoken and like passionate about things that you are. And just being like, you seem neat. Will you adopt me? And working through just finding those people that maybe even have that extra energy and have those communities already, and seeing which of those maybe fit with you. And especially once you've kind of gotten started, it's a lot easier because then you have all these great people who you know and trust, and they have communities too. And so you can start feeling from them, like, and I think as Izzy had said earlier, spiderwebbing through and just figuring out which parts you want to have as part of your work life and which parts do you not, which communities do you want to be a part of inside and outside of work, because you may have different requirements for both of those too.
Yeah, absolutely. Izzy.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, again, echoing back, I was lucky in that I was able to be in the office for a little bit. So I had that chance to make a lot of connections very naturally, just through either getting lunch together with folks or, later on, like playing Smash or other video games and like the game room back when we could use it. So that kind of helped me a lot with making my like first kind of base layer. But I realize that's not really helpful right now in a world where we're all working remotely and from home. I found since we've kind of done remote, I've found a lot of, I've been able to make some level of like connections just through a lot of just small Slack channels, right? So there's a lot of different channels where you can go to and people will talk about various subjects that they're passionate about. One that I participate in a lot is Talk Anime, and they have like a monthly anime night. So that's really easy way to like just to talk to people who also have similar interests as you, and then eventually, have a chance to actually see them and see their faces. I'd say too, I'm someone who relies a lot on my team. I think especially for kind of navigating and finding relationships and like connections. So I also try to do a lot of like team events, right, where we'll just do, every now and then like a trivia night. Like we did one recently for Halloween, for example, or, we'll do a game night or just something, right? So we get to see each other less as coworkers and more as just people.
Yeah, that's great. We had to kind of follow up to that. How do you ask about those things without potentially shutting down your chances to get the job? It's tricky. I can speak to this a little bit being in the recruiting sphere. Diversity and inclusion is obviously the hot topic. It's what every company should be striving to do. It is tricky conversations to have, but I think personally, and I mean, everybody's situation is different. So, I mean, I've been in a situation where I was unemployed and like desperate for work and was like, kind of like, okay, like if they're going to hire me, am I just going to take it because like they're going to hire me? But I think it's important to have those conversations and like, do you want to work at a company that doesn't have that and doesn't have that support? It's tricky. It is tricky, but I think those conversations kind of do need to be had. And I think we're lucky as well with social media and everything that like you can really get up to know a bit about a company just by looking at their social media, their websites. Like what are they?
Glassdoor.
Yeah, exactly. Like what are the comments on Glassdoor? What are the comments being out there? I mean, I always, when I look for jobs, that's like the first thing I do. I'll read the job description, be like, okay, I think I could do that job. Now let me go see what the company's reviews are on Glassdoor? What does their social media look like? Do they do pride events? Do they have a diversity in the pictures they're showing? It's difficult. It is difficult, and we're in that era where, you know, it's a hot topic.
Just as an aside, and Liz, I know that you want to say something too, so if you want to jump in, go for it. But one thing I was just going to throw out there is that, in my experience, asking those kinds of questions actually makes you look like a better candidate for the job. Like, if you genuinely are interested in joining an ERG or a community group at work and you're curious about those things, like that shows that you're interested in the company and you're curious about making real connection there and making it your life. And it is a big, huge part of your life. So asking those questions actually makes you look like a stronger candidate. And also, one piece of advice I was recently given was to ask for recommendations from past employees, from folks who are hiring you. And I think that's really interesting. I haven't done it personally yet, but I thought it was a really good idea and something that I might put in my back pocket for future.
And just to kind of add in this, I do think this is coming from, a North American perspective. So I do want to preface this, but it can be really daunting to bring these things up, because usually when you are any sort of minority voice, you have some trauma around bringing this up. And so I wanted to just say that, yeah, it is terrifying to sometimes bring up some of these things, and that you can try and bring them up in ways that are a bit more general, like, how does this company treat minority voices? How do those voices get lifted up in this company? And not framing it necessarily as, I am X or I am Y. How do you treat X or Y? But rather just saying, how do you generally treat the people who have traditionally not been heard? And I think that way you can kind of still get a vibe, because it tends to be that if they treat one minority voice poorly, they probably treat most of them poorly. And if they treat some particularly well, you do start to see that they seem to be generally good.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, we have to wrap this up. So I just want to finish by saying thank you to everybody who came to listen to us chat. Thank you to the amazing organizers of QueerTech for inviting us to do this. And of course, I want to give a big thank you to my amazing panel and fellow colleagues. You're wonderful human beings, and I'm very lucky to work with you. And thank you for sharing and being honest and open about these conversations. They're not easy to have, but they're so important. And if we keep doing this, hopefully we can continue to move that dial to more inclusive, wonderful working environment for everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing. And you were talking about community, and so I was just listening, and something that I want to also share with, last year when the pandemic was happening and it was the hype, and I was trying to do QueerTech and grow our community, but I was also like having a lot of mental issues and stress and stuff. And someone looked at me and was like, you can only grow QueerTech community or any community, and you can only go that far as you can go. And if you as a person not in a good place to grow that community and go, you need to look at yourself first and take care of yourself and heal and be ready to grow. You can't do both. And if you try to, you're just gonna break yourself and really figure out what you're doing. So always take care of yourself. But thank you so much again for sharing your perspective with us. Really love it.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely take care of yourself. That's important. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Okay. So we're going to get you to the break right away. And Junior is going to be pull in some beats here for you to stretch, stand up, stretch, and have. But we have 3 amazing workshops that are coming up at soon at 2:00. So the first one is how to land an internship in tech. That's going to be delivered by Emily from Unity, Intro to Cloud Basics, and Discover Your Core Values, Finding Fulfillment Through Your Peak Performance by Mazdak. That's going to be in the QueerTech Lounge. So the first one, Unity Networking Lounge. The second one is at RBC Networking Lounge. And the third one is at QueerTech HQ. So go take a break and start networking or interviewing at 1:30, and we'll all see you at the workshops at 2:00.